It was a bit of a feisty GOP debate Thursday night. To help analyze it, I'm going to Washington, where we find Jim Tankersley, a reporter at the Washington Post. Nice to see you, Jim. And let me start right off the bat by asking you, who do you think won that debate?
Well, it's always hard to pick winners and losers with debates like this, so I think the fallback position is to say, if there's a front runner going in and he seems to do nothing to lose that status, you say he's the winner. In that case, I think Donald Trump probably emerges as the winner of the debate, but plenty of the other candidates had impressive performances, the sort of things that start to show us how they might start to try to shake up this race as voting actually approaches.
All right, let's perhaps see if we see a sign of that. We're going to play a dialogue between Donald Trump and his top rival, Senator Cruz.
Not a lot of conservatives come out of Manhattan. I'm just saying.
Are you sure about that?
Maria? So conservatives actually do come out of Manhattan, including William F. Buckley and others, just so you understand. And just so, if I could, because he insulted a lot of people, I've had more calls on that statement that Ted made.
That, of course, was in response to Ted Cruz talking about New York values, and Trump came back and fired back and then went on to talk about the city during 9/11. Did Ted Cruz score some points last night?
I think Ted Cruz scored points parrying Donald Trump's attacks, particularly on the issue of whether he's eligible to run for president, even though he was born in Canada to a U.S. citizen mother. I think that he struggled a bit on that line, to be honest, because Donald Trump had a very good response. Now, also, having spent a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire over various campaign cycles, New York values is a definite pejorative out there in certain ways, but Donald Trump's answer, I think, is the sort of thing that could rally a particularly interesting group of Republicans, which are the people who fund campaigns. There are a lot of them in New York. There are a lot of them who give money. Now, they're not giving a lot to Donald Trump because he's not really raising money, but they are the type of people he needs to win over at least a little bit if he wants to be the Republican nominee. And saying things like this might be a small step toward palatability, if you will, in the eyes of that sort of moneyed class on Wall Street that Trump would need behind him if he wants to actually win a general election.
Jim, what did we learn from the candidates last night about what they would do regarding the economy? We certainly heard a lot in the debate early on about their thoughts on Barack Obama's handling of the economy.
Right. You know, we haven't really had a big debate yet over the economy. We've had a couple of debates that focused on economic issues, but even those, we had a lot of food fights, and only really once have we had a very deep, in-depth debate on the economy. The same was true last night, and I just don't think we got a lot of detail. There are some interesting issues, though, that have emerged. You know, Donald Trump wants to put a large tariff on goods coming in from China. That's a thing that conservatives just don't traditionally like, and that his opponents have begun to hit him on already. On the flip side, Ted Cruz has a tax plan that includes a shift away from income taxes. There's still some income taxes, but they're reduced in favor of what you might call a modified value-added tax, which is kind of like a national sales tax. And he's starting to take a lot of fire from his opponents on that. So on those issues, we're starting to see some real fissures form. And then on bigger questions like how do you balance the budget or what needs to be done with entitlement programs, we're still waiting for a lot of the candidates to fill in the blanks.
Do you expect that over a very short period, the next couple of weeks, we'll see some of these GOP contenders start dropping out?
I don't. I think that you would have to see real reasons for them to drop out. I mean, they've run out of money. You have to have a real sort of forcing issue to get you out of the race. There's a lot of question about whether, you know, Rand Paul, for example, who missed the cutoff to be on that stage last night, sticks around. But at this point, they're in. You've got only a couple of weeks to go before Iowa. You might as well see it through and you know, hope for a surprise result that could give you some wind in your sails again.
Who do you think beyond Trump and Cruz made the most headway last night, if anyone?
It's hard to say. You know, I think that actually maybe the biggest story that was immediately happened out of the debate last night was this morning for a non-Trump or Cruz candidate, which is Jeb Bush picking up the support of Lindsey Graham, who did drop out of the race. That seems to be sort of dominating the news cycle today, and I think that's very good for Bush, who struggled to get as much airtime, I think, as he wanted in that debate last night.
And Jim, finally, do you think there's anyone who's got to go back to the drawing board? Did anyone just make a mistake that was so bad or come off so poorly last night that they really have to rethink the way they're moving forward?
I think the candidate who continues to struggle most in the debates is Ben Carson, and I think that last night was another example of him sort of looking like he was playing a very different game on that stage than the rest of his rivals. That worked for him early on. It didn't work as his poll numbers have sort of plummeted over the fall, and now I didn't see anything last night that suggests he's going to start shooting back up. I think he's the one sort of looking for a closing strategy to maybe try to get him into the third or second place in Iowa.
Jim Tankersley of the Washington Post, thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thank you.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler for The Street.